Hi everyone, this is Arifa, your performance management tutor, and I'm going to give you some tips right before your exam. So as you all know, performance management not only tests your technical grasp of management accounting concepts, but also tests your analytical skills of how well you interpret the numbers, right? So we want to focus on all the areas that we have studied, not just on financial type of performance indicators, let's say with non-financial performance indicators as well. So some of the tips that I'm going to give you are related to studying, and some of them are specifically exam tips. So in terms of studying, make sure that before the exam, at least 1 or 2 weeks, you are going through the examiner's approach report, you're going through the technical articles that are available on the student accountant page. Make sure that you're giving a read through, because you'll be revising the concepts that we have already studied in class. Coming to the exam tips, so the first and most critical area is time management. You need to make sure that you're giving around 50 minutes for the section A of your exam. You're giving 17 minutes per scenario for the section B, which has 3 scenarios of 10 marks each, right? And section C, which has 2 20-mark questions, you need to allot at least 34 minutes for each question. The second tip is to try scoring the easy marks first. In section A, in section B, and in section C, you will see some questions are easy to score. So try to aim for doing them first. So for example, in a section C, you have one of the sub questions which is a general concept kind of a question. So do that first, because you don't even have to read the scenario to be able to attempt this question, right? And the third and final tip is to not skip any area of your portion, because in the end, you might have a situation where those 2 marks might decide whether you're going to pass or fail. So make sure you're covering the entire portion and attempting all the questions in the exam. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Hi guys, the exam is approaching very quick. So just a few reminders before the exam. Remember, tax is all about the rules. So the last 3 days before your exam should be spent on revising through these rules, remembering and testing out if you do remember those rules. It's nice to have maybe a friend or someone else test you on these rules. So ask them to go through the summary sheet and see if you can, answer out all the rules that is mentioned in the summary sheet. The revision questions are important as well. So please make sure you go through those revision questions, revisit the section A questions that was done in the exam kit. The feedback that you received for your final mock exam as well, highlighting where you went wrong, what chapters were not your best. So make sure you go through these bits before your real exam, and I'm sure you can all pass the exam. Tax is not that difficult if you know the rules. So all the best.
Hey guys, how are you doing? I hope you're well. The exam is right at the corner, and I'm just quickly here to give you some tips to ace the exam. To start with, you already know that the exam is composed of 3 sections, section A, B, and C. First 2 sections, you already know it's an MCQ. They both are MCQ section, and they're comprised of 60% of your exam. Now, they can get really tricky, as you might already know. You just have to choose the option, and sometime more than one option can seem the right one. So my best recommendation for you for section A and B will be to read the question properly. Read the question properly. Try to understand what is being asked of you before you just go and answer it. I know there's an inclination the moment you read your favorite topic and you understand, I know this. So there's an inclination to quickly go and select as an answer, but I'd rather recommend to step back and just read of what is being asked of you, because unfortunately there's not much choice there. The selection you made, you're either right or you're wrong. But the last section of the exam, section C, there is a bit of a method marks there. So I'd say that first part of the section C, where you have either the published account question or the consolidation question, and the second part of section C, where you have an interpretation question. Well, to start with the interpretation, please make sure that you try to ace this section of the exam, the interpretation part, as much as you can, because firstly, it's coming for sure, and secondly, we want to get that additional benefit in the end of the exam. So even if God forbid you've made some mistakes in the first 2 sections, it can cover up for that, right? Specifically for the section C interpretation question, I will advise you to read the answers which are there in your exam kit. So it will give you an understanding of what kind of an answer is expected of you, or how you can structure your comments on the ratios, right? And again, as I keep on saying, it's not about ratios, it's about your interpretation. Please do read the examiner comments for the same as well. And for consolidation, please make sure that you have your grip on the 5 workings and all the conceptual elements of consolidation. And I know there's a need to choose on which is going to come, but please don't do that. Have your equal grip on both the sides, being consolidation and the published accounts. Practice these questions. And lastly, the main tip for me, for you guys, that I want to give you is that make sure you do these questions time bound when you practice, so that in the exam, when you are doing these questions under the time pressure, you have the practice on keeping your nerves calm. Now, having said that, guys, I wish you all the best of luck, and I am pretty sure you all will ace the exam. Thank you.
Hello everybody, your AA exam is around the corner, and these are your last few tips before you go for your exam in December. First and foremost thing, just to remind you guys, in terms of time management, this is a very crucial thing that you need to keep in mind before you start doing your exam. Remember, we have 2 sections. We've got section A and we've got section B of the paper. Always please start with section B of the paper, because it is a time consumption area. So we need to make sure we have plenty of time to do section B before you come to section A. Remember, in section B, we have got 3 questions. You have got 130 marker and you have your 220 marker question. How you need to allocate your time is that the 30 marker question, you will need to take at least 50 to 55 minutes. 55 is your maximum upper limit. And then for the remaining 220 mark questions, you need to approximately allocate around 35 minutes per question. So as a total, you need to spend around 2 hours attempting section B of the paper, and then followed by that come back to section A and attempt the multiple choice questions. It is preferable to spend your initial energy and time in section B. That's why I said start with section B, do all the things in section B, and then come back for the last hour to section A of the paper. Keep in mind, guys, it is also important before you go into your exam is to read the examiner's report, so that you guys understand which are your common mistakes area that is done by students for the last previous sittings. So you will be able to understand which are the common areas that you will need to avoid on the day of the exam in terms of common mistakes. Okay. All the very best, guys, for your exam. Please make sure you sleep well, eat well, drink well before you go into the exam. Yeah. And make sure you do revise through. Remember, I mentioned the audit report and the illustration of the audit report. Please make sure you go through that before you go into your exam hall. All the best, guys, and do well.
Hi everyone, this is Mustafa from Phoenix Financial Training, and I'm here to give you a couple of tips before your FM exam. Now, the first thing you need to do is you need to practice all the example questions given to you, as well as the practice questions mentioned in the revision. Secondly, ensure that you prioritize your exam. Look at all the questions and do the questions that you're comfortable with first. Now, for section A and B questions, I would suggest start with the theoretical questions first, so you can get those quick, easy marks, and that will increase your chances of passing the exam. Make sure you keep in mind the exam techniques. This would mean if you're not aware of a certain calculation, or let's say you forgot, or let's say you don't have time to complete a certain calculation, what you could do is you could assume a number and move on, because this will ensure that you get the full method marks for your question, and that will increase your chances of passing the exam. Next, ensure that you review your interim mocks and your final mocks to see the best way to answer certain questions. And lastly, the night before the exam, ensure that you get enough sleep and ensure that you are well prepared to go to the venue and write the exam. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm sure that all of you are going to ace the exam.